Sports, where passion meets precision. As I'm your host, Ed, diving deep into the plays, players, and stories shaping the game. And this is episode 33 of Sports Fanatic Forum. So let's get right into it. Y'all know how we do it. And Zips update. The Akron lacrosse team, obviously still covering lacrosse, softball, and baseball. As softball is headed to the playoffs, softball is headed to the MAC tournament. Lacrosse just lost in the MAC tournament, and then baseball, they haven't been good. And so we'll dive right into that with lacrosse, because like I said, they was in the MAC tournament, but they lost in the title game to UMass, and wasn't a competitive game at all. A game where they struggled. And UMass had their number throughout the season. They played two games against UMass, one in the regular season, one in the playoffs, and they lost both of them. In this game, in the title game, UMass won 15-3, so got to give them credit and congratulate them on winning the lacrosse MAC tournament and heading to the playoffs. UMass, they zoned in on Sienna Hinchcliffe, limited her. She had 6 shots on goals, but didn't have any goals, didn't score, didn't even have any assists. Heather Carey scored 2 of the goals, and the other goal came from Kellen Fletcher. So just 2 women scored goals for Akron in this game. And then UMass, like I said, they had their number in the regular season. They had a matchup where UMass won 18-10, and that was one of the three regular season games where Akron gave up the most goals. And yeah, because again, it was one game they gave up 19, and another they gave up like 20 something. So it was one of their most goals given up in a single game versus UMass earlier in the season. So like I said, UMass dominated that matchup, and it was a bit different because they kind of let Sienna Hinchcliffe do her thing because she had 6 goals, but she didn't have any assists. And Sienna Hinchcliffe, like I said, you're used to her getting a lot of goals, a lot of assists, leading the team in both. But what they let Sienna Hinchcliffe do her thing while they zoned in on the other girls around her. So that's why she ended up with 0 goals in that game, and they just focused on everybody else. Then in the playoffs, they changed that. Even they changed it still, and they won by even more in this game by not allowing Sienna Hinchcliffe to get off to a hot start or have a good game in general. And then nobody else was able to really do anything. Heather Carey, like I said, she scored two goals, but Akron only had 3. So it's like, and they lost it by 12. So UMass, they outscored Akron 33-13 in these 2 games that they played against each other in the regular season. And UMass just simply had their number. They were just a better team. In the championship game, Katie and Cassidy both had 4 goals in that title game. Then Abel had 2 goals and 1 assist. All credit goes to UMass. They played well, not just well, they played great. Because like I said, they did this twice against Akron. They did it in the regular season, then they followed it up in the conference title game. So just got to give credit where credit is due and congratulate UMass once again. Um, Now for softball had a really great season. Well, lacrosse had a good season too. They just lost in the MAC title game. But softball, they'll continue to have a great season over the past week. They had a game versus Dayton that ended up getting canceled, which I don't know why, because the baseball team played against Dayton. So I don't know what the cancellation was about. No idea what happened. But in softball, they had their last series of the season as they're headed to the MAC tournament, and they went 2-1 against Central Michigan to end the season. The first game they won 5-4, and pitching wise they had 7 strikeouts. So the pitchers were really good that game. Well, not really good. They had compared to what's been happening throughout the season, it was a solid effort by the pitching for Akron. Had 7 strikeouts, only gave up 1 walk in softball. They were giving up a few walks in a few games, so they were able to do that. Uh, Lily Sullivan, Lily Sullivan, she finished with 3 at bats, 2 runs, 2 hits, and 2 RBIs. She was great. She led the charge in that game and was the player of the game. Was the star of that game. I think she's a junior. I think she's one of the few juniors and there's a few seniors on the team. And then you had in a game two, Akron won that one as well. They won 9-5 in that game, so they won it by more. Uh, they had 5 runs in the first inning, so they just got out to a really great start. But they did give up 8 walks in that game, which is why they were able to score Central Michigan. That's why they were able to score a few runs because Akron kept giving up so many walks throughout the game. You give up that many walks you're likely gonna lose. Like whether it's pros or college, no matter what level of baseball or softball it is, if you're giving up that many runs, no, not runs, that many walks, you're likely gonna give up runs as well. That's gonna be a product of that. So yeah, they that happened. But Akron had a great first and fourth inning. In the fourth inning, they had 4 runs, 4 for 4. So their only runs came in the first and fourth innings, as they won 9-5. But like I said, those walks that they had, that was a product of them being Central Michigan being able to score. Sydney Silker, she had 3 at bats, 2 runs, 2 hits, and 3 RBIs in the second game. So Akron won those first two, so they ended up winning the series. Um, 2-1. And then the last game of the series, was the end up losing to Central Michigan. It was it was a high scoring game. Central Michigan won that 17-15. It was 34 total hits in the game. Like that, that was an insane game. The pitching wasn't great. The batting was just electric. You had 4 women with multiple RBIs for Central Michigan, but see, Sierra Alaska, she had 4 at bats, 1 run, 2 hits, and 5 RBIs for Central Michigan. So she had a say lost connection. Um, okay, okay, so we're back. Um, yes, they had lost connection, but from like I said, 4 women for Central Michigan had multiple RBIs. Sierra Alaska 4 at bats, 1 run, 2 hits, and 5 RBIs. Like I said, she was electric, absolutely amazing. He had 5 girls on Akron with multiple RBIs, but it didn't matter. So but Akron still won the series 2-1. They finished the season 31-23, are one of the top 2 teams in the MAC for softball. So they're getting the first round bye in the MAC tournament. So they're going to be waiting to see so they don't know who they face yet. And I think the MAC tournament kicks off for softball on the 7th, so on Thursday. And so they'll find out who they're playing and how fast that'll go. But yeah, great season for softball. Now, baseball is where it's been a struggle for Akron throughout the year, and I've talked about this the last couple of weeks. They struggled once again. They went 0-4 this past week. They fell to 20-28. They got embarrassed in the game they played against Dayton, losing 11-4, and 6 of those runs were scored in the first inning. So even following that, if you take away those 6 goals, they still lost 5-4. But due to that first inning being so great by Dayton, they carried that momentum throughout the game. They had 3 doubles in that game, and they were able to win. Like after the first inning, it was a pretty back and forth contest, but Akron didn't have anything game changing or like a huge breakaway to make it a closer game because it was 5. If you take away the first inning, Dayton still won at 5-4, so they still would have won the game. And then they just lost the series to Kent State, losing all 3 games against them by 4 or more runs in each of them. And then Sunday featured a doubleheader, and one of those games was lost 12-1 by Akron, and it ended in 8 innings. So it didn't even go to full distance because in college and softball and baseball, they got the mercy rule where you leading by a certain amount after a certain period, and then the game can just end. So the eighth inning, ending the eighth inning due to the mercy rule, and then Akron's pitching in this 3 game stretch was terrible. They gave up 35 hits, which is 8 something. No, that's around 10. That's 10 or more hits a game. Then they gave up 10 walks, which is 3 walks per game, essentially like 3.3 that they're giving up per game. And so they gave it, actually in 36, they had about 3 is 12. So they had 35, gave up 35 hits. They were nearly giving up 12 hits a game in this series against Kent State. This was just terrible. No effort, didn't show any fight in this. So just an embarrassing game, embarrassing series, and embarrassing week in general for them. I think none of the games were close. Like I said, they lost all of them by 4 or more runs. And so a rough week for Akron's baseball team, one of their worst weeks. And they've had some really bad ones. It's not their worst, but it's definitely up there. As this was another bad week that did not reflect them well. Like, I mean, fall to 20-28. Like they had picked up some momentum last week, or 2 weeks ago, and then this week they don't capitalize on that. This past week they go 0-4, and they got 2 more series to finish the season. I think because baseball is longer than softball, so it's been rough. It's gonna continue to be rough, but softball, wishing them luck in the MAC tournament, hoping they can win that. Now for the bowling spotlight, for the for the last actually for a good majority of the year, when the year started, when I introduced this podcast, I just did previews talking about the PBA Elite League and the teams going into it. And I previewed some of the top, like Ryan Barnes and EJ Tackett, previewing what their seasons should look like. And then once the season started, I covered the tournaments, and there's still other tournaments that's going on, but they haven't culminated yet, so they haven't came to that point of the step ladder. But this past week, but that's for good reason, because this past week the USBC just did their Hall of Fame inductions, and six legendary bowling figures were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I'm just here to recap that and talk about all six legends that went in there, whether they be coaches, associates, or players in general. It was a couple of coaches, a few people that's like associates and directors, things like that. And yeah, so to get into it, we got a couple of players to we got three players that got inducted. First, Michelle Feldman. She she bowled professionally from 1995 to 2003. She was part of the PWBA Professional Women's Bowling Association, and and she won 12 titles in the PWBA slash LBTP. Won 12 titles there. Was Player of the Year in her second to last year in 2002. So Player of the Year later into her career. She was the first woman to roll a televised 300 in women's pro competition in 1997, and she won two PBA Women's Series titles in 2008 and Women's World Series Showdown champion in 2010, coming out of retirement for those events. So Michelle Feldman set history, made a mark, one of the most influential women in bowling for the women that are bowling now. Certainly somebody that they looked up to, somebody that's absolutely amazing what she was able to do and accomplish over her career. And she was only bowling for 8 years. She wasn't doing it super long, but she was constantly winning titles, constantly in tournaments. And then, like I said, 2008, 2010, even competed second to last year professionally. She was recognized as Player of the Year. So, and that wasn't just women. That was bowling included, like all like men bowlers included too. And she won Player of the Year. So you got to congratulate her for that. And then the second player that was inducted, Mara Marlis Tapp, she won the USBC Women's Championship Classic Team titles four different occasions. But she was part of those, yeah, on four different occasions. She was part of those teams in 1997, 2000, 2002, and 2004. Made a mark being uh, just that those teams just working really well together, and her being part of all four of those teams. And a couple of those teams set records. Part of the first team to break um, a total of 3,200 points, and that was in 2002. And then she was also part of the first team to break 3,300 points, which is in 2002. And I think the first one was in 2000. I think I said that was both in '02. The first one was in 2000 that I said. The other one was in 2002. And then over her career, she competed in 30 women's championships. So it wasn't like she was getting the tournaments and just losing first round, first a second match. Like she was getting to the title game. She was one of them, won some, lost some, but she had a legendary career. And then the third and last player inducted was Bob Larson. He had 42 consecutive USBC Open Championship appearances from 1969 to 2010. Won three team all events in 1982, 1983, and 1986. And he won a doubles with Dan Cook in 1986. The 1986 was Bob Larson's best year probably because, like I said, he won. He was in the USBC Open Championship again. He won a doubles with Dan Cook, and he also won a team event that year. So that was a really legendary year for him, and he had a great career. One of the most consistent bowlers of all time, and has the longevity that's unmatched. Like nobody else in the PBA is likely going to be able to replicate what he was able to do. So got to give him credit on that tip. And then, and yeah, like consistency from late '60s going into the '70s to all the way to 2010, a phenomenal career. Um, now the next, now the next couple of people, well, there was these is people that's like on the board, make certain decisions, things like that, and help grow the PBA. So the next guy is Joe Diamond, who he served 3 terms on the USBC board that started in 2011. So they make the decisions on where the tournaments are going to be held, how they'll be, the point system, things like that. So he served on that before. He was a former WIBC director for 3 years from '02 to 2005, and he served on multiple national committees and was one of the greatest managers in bowling history, as he was a Central Ohio USBC associate manager as well. So, like I said, making those big decisions, deciding prize money, deciding where tournaments are going to be held, things like that. He played a big factor in doing a lot of that and helping the PBA advance to what it is and the Hall of Fame and what's that's become where it'll be held at on a yearly basis, things like that. And so one of the most legend, like I said, it's not just players, it's legendary figures as well. The fifth inductee of the Hall of Fame, Mark Martin. Funny name, but Mark Martin, ABC jurisdictional associate from 1998 to 2002, ABC director from 2002 to 2005, and he served on the ABC and USB strategic planning committee during the merger era when the bowling leagues merged with each other. So he was also planning and coordinating events similar to the last person that I just mentioned. So he was doing stuff like that. He chaired major USBC committees like Legal and Legislative, National Policy, and the USB Hall of Fame. So he's putting together these events, coordinating it, getting things together, like doing that stuff and on the national committees. So like that's like Olympic teams or things like that, or like FIBA or the World versus US stuff that we see now in the PBA. He created and operated the Michigan State Masters and Seniors Masters from 2007 to 2018, making those successful events. He was an executive director slash associate manager of Greater Detroit BA from 1996 to 2022. So he was also doing a few of these things around the same time. So he was pulling double, triple duty at times. And then the last guy that was inducted into the Hall of Fame was Rod Ross, one of the greatest coaches of all time. He was Team USA's head coach for 10 straight years from 2010 to 2020. He was a junior Team USA head coach from 2004 to 2017. And he led USA to over 300 medals and over 150, which over half of them were gold. Like over 150 of those medals they won were gold medals. He oversaw 25 plus championship teams, 7 Pan AM games, gold, 1 7 Pan AM gold medals, and 3 World Cups. And he was won USBC bronze in 1991, silver in 1993, and gold in 2000, and gold in year 2000. And he was a 5 time USOC National Coach of the Year, which was in 2004, 2010, 2012, 2015, and 2019. So he had a legendary coaching tenure. Did it for a long time. Like he was a coach for a while. And like I said, oversaw many different champions, world famous bowlers, junior leagues, stuff like that. So this was a really great Hall of Fame class. All these people, legends in the industry. This is the 2026 USBC Hall of Fame class. All very deserving people. All of it made sense. Some of the most legendary things and stats, stories, etc. that you will hear of. So, and then it's obviously stuff you can find on the PBA channel. More than likely, most likely, we can find stuff on the PBA channel. So yeah, because the PBA they post old stuff all the time. They post their current events. They wait a few weeks to post their current events, but you can find that stuff and figure out what they got going because they, like I said, this was a really good class. So got to shout out to them. Great class, like I said. Everybody well deserved, all earned their spots on in the Hall of Fame this year. So yeah, um, that's all I got to say about it. I just wanted to take this time to cover them, talk about them for a little bit because obviously bowling doesn't get as much coverage, so I put it on the podcast. I'll make my shorts here and there. I ain't made a short in a minute. Maybe I'll make a bowling hot take for next week because I haven't. Because speaking of hot takes, that's the next subject I'm gonna dive into. So Yeah, let's get that going. All right, the hot take of the week is that Isaiah Thomas should have won MVP in 2016, 2017. Then I'll read it word for word. Um, it's from my guy Joshua. He said, I low-key wanted Isaiah Thomas to be MVP, to be 2016-17 MVP. The Celtics were the first seed in the East that year, and he completely carried them. So to address Joshua's hot take, because I'm talking about all the MVP candidates before I give my opinion on if I agree or disagree with this take. Isaiah Thomas, well, the Celtics were the first seed in the league that year, so that is, and so he did get that right. Now the Celtics team, now Isaiah Thomas, he was an All Star, second team All NBA, finished fifth in MVP voting. Isaiah Thomas averaged 29 points per game, nearly 6 assists. I'm rounding up, so 3 rebounds a game, and he was doing it on 46 on 46, 37, 90 splits. So he was shooting lights out. Nearly 38% from three on 8 attempts a game. That's really good. And then 90% from the free throw line. And nobody else on the team matched him when it came to free throw percentage. Like nobody else was close. Like the second highest free throw percentage was 81% on that team. So he was the best free throw shooter. They also only got 23 free throws as a team. But Isaiah Thomas, he was making his. This is Jaylen Brown's rookie year, so Jaylen Brown's coming off the bench. The Celtics did have 53 wins. I think this team had good. They had a lot of good role players, but nobody else was an all star or a superstar type player because there was a superstar level season by Isaiah Thomas. Because you had Avery Bradley who was giving you 16 a night, 5 rebounds, no 6 rebounds, a steal a game. He was giving you good defense too. Avery Bradley, he's not an all star type guy, but he like this team. Like I can see why he say he carried them because they had a lot of solid role players, and then they had that all star MVP caliber guy in Isaiah Thomas who led them to 59 wins. They had 2 more wins than the Cavaliers did that season, who had LeBron and Kyrie on that team. So Isaiah Thomas, then like I said, he was pretty efficient too. 37% from three on 37.9% from three. This is Jaylen Brown's rookie year. You had Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Jay Crowder. Like these are guys that all, and Avery Bradley, of course, they all average double digit points. But all these guys are more known for what they're able to do on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Horford, we've seen him over the years become a better 3 point shooter. But at this time, a lot of these guys, they're known more for their defense. So Isaiah Thomas is carrying the offensive load because you don't expect a lot of these guys offensively. Like Jay Crowder, he's giving you 13 points. So on 39% from three, like like he was that 3 and D guy. Like he was always been one of those guys. So I can see why he says carry because, like I said, this is Jaylen Brown's rookie year. Don't know how many people expected him to have this great of a season. And the MVP is usually a guy on the top three seed in the respective conference and a guy who has a great statistical season. But now let's look at the other MVP candidates from that year and where their teams ended up. LeBron, he was fourth in MVP that year. The Cavs was right behind the Celtics at 51 wins. They was tied with the Raptors, but they had the tiebreaker. So, and then LeBron, he was averaging uh 20, no, yeah, 28.9 points per game, 5.9 assists, 2.7. Wait, no, 8. I'm looking at Isaiah Thomas. No, LeBron was averaging 26, 8, and 8 that season on 54, 36, 67 splits. And the free throws was bad that year. And like LeBron, he's like 72% for his career, but that was really bad. Like that was a rough year for him shooting from the free throw line. But other than that, he had a good season, but the defense wasn't really there. Like because LeBron, his best defensive stretch was from the Heat, from that late Cavs to then him with the Heat those 4 years, and then even going into 2016. But after that, I felt like his defense fell off. But you have LeBron as a candidate. You had Kawhi and the Spurs. Kawhi was averaging 25, 8, and 4, along with 1.8 steals. And then the Spurs, they were second in the West with 61 wins. So, yeah, you had James Harden. The Rockets were third in the West with 55 wins. Harden was averaging 29 points, 11 assists. He was the leading assister that season, I think. If not, he was up there. Then he was averaging 1.5 steals. So Harden, like everybody was having great seasons. Then Westbrook ultimately won it, averaging a triple double, being the first guy to do that since Oscar Robertson did it. And then he was also giving you 1.6 steals per game. The OKC was trash. That team wasn't good. Like it's like Russ was carrying that team. Then I can pull up the averages too. But Russ obviously he had average 20 point, no 30 point triple double because he was giving you 31.6 a night, which like I said we hadn't seen anybody do since Oscar Robertson. And now the only person we're seeing do it now is the Jokic. So and then I want to pull up this OKC roster because that was like I said that roster wasn't. Oladipo was averaging 16 points this season. Andre Roberson, he was all defensive second team. We finished fifth in what's the name? DPOY voting. Steven Adams, 11.3. Ennis Freedom, six man of the year candidate. Wasn't the finalist, but he was one of the top 10 six men that year, 14.3. I I think Russ. No, I don't even think. Like Russ definitely had the bigger carry job, but saying Isaiah Thomas carried isn't a bad take, in my opinion. But I get why Russ won it because he is averaging 30 point triple double, something historic that we haven't seen in 50 plus years or whatever. Got OKC as a six seed, so it's such an outstanding statistical season, and he's in the playoffs. But also from the perspective of most MVPs, our guys that's on the top three seed also having great seasons. Like there wasn't a clear second option on that Celtics team either. Yeah, you had yeah, Avery Bradley was the second leading scorer, but Jay Crowder or Al Horford could be that second leading scorer on any given night. And so it's like there wasn't a clear second option on that team, and he led the Celtics to a better record than what the Cavs had with LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love. Like nobody expected the Celtics to be like you could have looked at this team and said, yeah, they'll be a good team. That like they'll probably likely be in the playoffs because that's what because the Celtics historically are always in the playoffs. But obviously they've missed a few times, but you get my point. But it's also like you don't expect them to be better than the Cavs at that in that season. Like them being better than the Cavs is kind of crazy. Now, I personally agree with this hot take because I do believe Isaiah Thomas should have won MVP. He was giving you nearly 30 points a night, 28.9. None you got to just round it up to 29. He was averaging 29 points a night on 37, on nearly 38% from three while taking eight threes a game. He was fantastic offensively, gave you six assists a night. And this was a team that didn't have a clear second option. The Celtics were the first seed in the East, which many people didn't expect. Like I said, they had a better record than the Cavs and the Raptors, who the Raptors they were starting to become a little bit more established at that point. So I just think I do agree with it. That's not to take away from Russ. He still had a phenomenal season. Like him averaging a triple double, being the first since Oscar to do it, like I said multiple times. That's impressive. And he led a six seed, and he led them to the sixth seed and made the playoffs. But I think the I always think MVP if the obviously it's anomalies to guys winning MVPs like Russ winning it. So I don't even have a problem with him necessarily winning the MVP. But I do agree with this hot take. I did advocate for Isaiah Thomas to win it in the 2016-17 season because I thought he was fantastic that year. Rightfully, he was in the MVP race. He was on All NBA second team. In today's era, he would have been on first team, would have been positionless. But this is a really good hot take. I think all five guys realistically had a good chance of winning it, in my opinion. Harden, uh, Kawhi, LeBron, Isaiah Thomas, Westbrook, who did win it. Like all those was the top five in MVP voting that year. I think any guy could have won it, and it still would have been a conversation to this day because it's such a good race that you can realistically make an argument for anybody. But I do like this Isaiah Thomas hot take because I do agree with it, and I did think he should have won MVP in 2017. But Russ got it, so congratulations to him. I mean, he's always gonna have that. Can't take that away from him. Russ has had a really he's had a good career. The last few years it's been kind of weird, but he's had a good career overall. And Isaiah Thomas and injuries, man, injuries messed him up real bad. But let's get into the Raw recap because I don't know what the hell I was watching last night. That's another terrible go home show. These go home shows for Raw have been really, no, for pay per views have been really bad. I give Raw a 4 out of 10. I gotta put my notebook up because a lot of this stuff it don't really matter. Seth and Roman had a stare down. That's cool. So they got to Seth and Roman having a stare down. That's cool. Like it makes sense. So um, Liv Morgan, she was like, she said that she was worried about Roxanne, mad because she didn't mention the stuff about Finn, but she was like, "What I had to watch Raw to find out what happened." But it's like you literally seen her tell Finn to that he shouldn't be back here, this and that. So it was kind of weird to me, but it was whatever. But it wasn't even that I was mad at. It was like, and then it was the way that Raquel looked at Liv as she said, "Well, yeah, Raquel and Roxanne are won the tag title." So the way she looked at her, I'm like, okay, I see they got something going with that. That was cool. Then you had the first match, which was Finn Balor and JD McDonough. So we still scratching the Finn and Dominic thing because Dom kept getting involved. The ladies came out there, got involved. The Liv gave Roxy a hammer to hit Finn with. So and JD ended up getting the win. But Dom already lost to the Demon. So why are you still continuing the feud? That's kind of pointless. Unless the AAA title is going to be on the line, I don't see the point in doing that. And then you had yeah, JD got the win. That was cool. Jackie Redmond, she was just asking Seth how he was. That don't matter. I talked about Seth and the Bronze and the Vision, the Street Profits. I already made a short about that, so I'm gonna just skip over that. The yeah, the Vision. Not mention that too in that short. Oh, the second match you had Penta and Javon Evans taking on Rusev and Ethan Page. A cool match. This was a good tag team match. You got multiple challenges for the IC title. Throw them in a match together because it makes sense. You got two faces. You got two heels. Rusev, he was just doing his thing. He had like a Uranagi to Penta on the table, and then Ethan Page, he was able to stop Javon's high flying maneuvers because he's wrestled with him before, so he's used to it. So he's prepared for what Javon's gonna do next. So they display really good chemistry, and then uh, Rusev and Ethan Page ended up getting the win. My only problem with this is Penta lost back-to-back matches now, and he still doesn't have a title match set up because Rusev and Ethan Page pinned them. So do you go triple threat match or do you go Ethan and Rusev one on one? Then winner gets them first, and the loser still gets a match because they pinned the champion, but they gotta wait for their opportunity. So like I think Javon could have took the pin in this match because it's like Penta the IC champion. He just lost back-to-back matches. It's like champions can lose, they can take losses, but this wasn't the right way to do it. Like Ethan Page getting the pin over him, build up Ethan and Penta for a little bit. Then they had that match, and then if you revisit this tag match, they still feuding. Then Rusev pins him. Then Rusev will get his match justifiably because he pinned him. But now it's like he's been pinning back to back matches, and it's still no. We still don't know who the number one contender is, or they're just gonna make a triple threat, or because it can't be a four way because Devon ain't been winning. He ain't been getting no pins. He been doing some cool high flying moves, but he ain't got no pins. So Sol Ruka, she officially signed with Raw. I thought Sol Ruka's segment was really good. I like how she kept cutting off Becky. Did the same thing with Liv. No, she didn't even do it with Liv, but I like because it felt natural her cutting her off like you're interrupting my time. Let me speak. Like I'll tell you when you can speak type thing. And so or like you can speak once I get done speaking. So I like that. I thought that was done really well. That's why I like Sol Ruka because that just felt natural. Her cutting off Becky, stopping her from talking. So that was cool. But she did watch that Soul Snatcher, so she got to get a new finisher. I would save the Soul Snatcher and only do it in special matches, like if it's a championship match or something like that. That's when I think you pull it out. And then you had the Usos. They said they won't miss the contract signing. Um, okay, we'll see about that. I'll get back to that. Joe Hendry already talked about that match in my short I made earlier. Jackie Redmond, she talked to the Judgment Day, and then Liv Morgan was like, we're planning on winning all the gold, and that starts with Roxanne and Raquel getting tag titles. Then Bailey and Lyra was backstage, and they was like, "Well, y'all cheated to beat us, so we want a rematch. So we're gonna get part 81 of this. Like, do we have to keep seeing this match?" It's like some Triple H drags a few. He drags a lot of stories way too long, and they need to go. Like, you shouldn't still be dragging this. Obafemi had this open challenge versus Otis. I don't like the open challenge. And it's like these is like, yeah, Otis is a bigger guy, so cool to Zawa back down, whatever. You can actually build a story with this. Like, you can actually build stories because we don't like, is Oba really a face? Is he really a heel? Like, we don't know. Is he a tweener? I guess. Like, it was a whatever match. Like, Oba looked dominant as he should. Like, Oba should be dominating the matches, but I don't like how he doesn't. There's no stories for him. He just retired one of the greatest WWE wrestlers of all time and Brock Lesnar, and he doesn't have any stories. He's just doing open challenges because all the champions are booked up. Why don't you just force yourself into the title picture? And you could easily do that. So I didn't like that. Yeah, I didn't like that. You had, I think I mentioned, yeah, the Montez stuff. Yeah, that whole Seth Montez, Street Profits, Vision thing. I covered that in short. I made everything was all over the place throughout the night. I talked about EO and Oscar. I thought that was a really good segment. I enjoyed that. I love that segment. I talked about it in a short I made earlier. So make sure you go back and watch that if you haven't. Um, OG Americano was with Los Amer. Wait, it wasn't Los Americanos. It was yeah. I talked about that. Well, I talked about the match really. I ain't even talk about the segment they had. I talked about the match and it was whatever. One issue I had with this show before I get to the main event segment was the fact that there was no women's matches. You had some promos. You had a promo with Soul and Becky. That's cool. You had a segment with Liv had multiple segments, but she don't got any challengers. The tag champs, Paige and Bree and Nikki, they not there. There's no challenges for Liv because she involved in the Finn stuff, and now this tag feud with Bailey and Lyra. And then you ain't have no women's matches. You can even do a throwaway match. Ivy now versus Maxine Dupree or something for no reason, or Oscar versus or was Io Sky versus Ivy now and Oscar interferes, or Oscar the special guest referee or something. Like, it wasn't no women's matches. The tag champions wasn't on the show, even though Raquel and Roxanne Judgment they called them out. And then you had then Liv don't got a feud as women's world champion. So the women's division, it didn't look good tonight. Like I said, Soul's promo was great, but then so I won't take away from the segment because of the botch, but she still did botch. And so the EO and Oscar stuff, yeah, that segment too. Like I said, that was really good, but you could have still had that, have EO have a match with somebody and Oscar interfere, she'd be a ref for being on commentary, something. But the contract signing, I didn't like it. Uh, I didn't like the contract signing. You had Roman and Fatu sign the contracts. The Usos weren't there, even though they said they were going to be there to watch and make sure Jacob Fatu don't use the tongue and death grip again. They weren't there. We seen them on Raw. They didn't even come out for the contract signing. Roman throughout the night was yelling at Adam Pearce about something. So I thought it was going to be like a stipulation or something. It's just a normal match. He did all that damn yelling for it to be a normal match. Okay. Fatu was like, I need to feed my family. I'm like, okay. Like, you said that already. You said that in the first time. The first time you said it, it was cool because it made sense. Y'all family, but you got your own family you got to take care of. First promo that makes sense, cool. And then Roman, he was like, well, I got to feed everybody. Like, how many times have we heard this? And I'm wearing a Roman Reigns shirt right now, so it's not even nothing against Roman because I like Roman Reigns. But it's like, we've heard that before. We've heard it from both of y'all. So this promo, it didn't do nothing for me. It didn't make me more excited about the match. It just then Fatu stood tall, so Roman don't stand tall a single time in the brawls. Had two brawls and Roman didn't stand tall in either one of them. I'm like, okay, but I give Raw a 4 out of 10. It wasn't, just wasn't it. No women's matches. The division stuff all over the place. The last promo wasn't good. The tag division dead because you got the Creed brothers and New Catch Republic dressing up as fake ass luchadors. And so this just wasn't. This wasn't good to me. This wasn't a good show. This was a really bad go home show. I give it a 4 out of 10, and that's not nothing to rave over. That's not a good thing. Now we can move into the injury report and talk about a few people that are injured. I'm Since we just got done recapping Raw, it's just two injuries that I'm gonna cover real quick. Stephanie Valkyrie, apparently she is injured. I don't know where her injury is, so prayers up to her. But that's why she's not on TV. I thought they was gonna keep running that because it was a really good. That was the best feud going into WrestleMania, in my opinion. But they didn't do nothing with that. I mean, they did. They had the match, which was short, but apparently Stephanie's injured, so we're not even gonna get the rematch. I mean, maybe you'll get the rematch at SummerSlam, but it's like, is that why they prolonging the Raquel and Roxanne turn or whatever? I don't know, but yeah, prayers up to her though. Don't want to see injuries. Bronson Reed, he's still out with a torn tricep, but I think he's gonna be close to returning. Because, like I said, the division is outnumbered right now. Brock just retired, so it's Paul Heyman with Austin Theory, Logan Paul, and Braun Breaker. But they outnumbered by the Street Profits, Joe Hendry and Seth, even though they're not on the same page yet. But it's still out. They're outnumbered by the faces because Paul Heyman not gonna wrestle. He'll take a bump, but he can't like actually wrestle and get in the ring and like go crazy. So I'm assuming Bronson Reed close to returning because you kind of got to do a 4-way. Like you usually don't see the heels outnumbered unless somebody's getting ready, getting close or ready to return. So that's what I'm assuming. I'm assuming that they're getting ready, that he's getting ready to be back, and and we'll be seeing him possibly at Backlash. I think that's a possibility that we could see. So, um, and then for AEW, Jay White remains out injured. I thought he was supposed to come back at the last pay per view at what was, I forget the name of the last pay per view, but excuse me, it wasn't Double or None because Double or None is coming up this month. But Revolution, I thought he was coming back at Revolution, but he didn't. But I feel like he could be. But we just seen both of the Gunn brothers is back. Juice Robinson's been back for a minute, and so it's seen. Hopefully he'll be back soon, so we can get what was they Bullet Club Gold or something like that. So hopefully he'll be back soon. I still think he could. I think he should be coming back soon though. But Jay White, he's been out for a little minute. Uh, for for the NHL, not really nothing major. A lot of the guys are healthy, and some of the guys in the playoffs. So fine. Some will wait until that doesn't isn't popped up anymore. Okay. So for the NHL, like I said, most of the guys that are injured, their team's already out the playoffs or they're just recovering. But Josh Manson is out for the Apple. Well, he's not out. He was out for the Avalanche in game one versus the Wild, I think. Yeah, they played Minnesota. Yeah, they play Minnesota right now. They got game two tonight, and he could return. He's been out with an upper body injury, so if he doesn't return for game two, he'll be good for game three because they're projecting him to return. Because they upgraded him to questionable for tonight, so it's up in the air if he'll play tonight, 8 p.m. East. But it is a possibility. If not game two, he'll be back for game three. For There's a few NBA injuries. I'm gonna go to baseball first, and then I'll get back. Then I'll hit the NBA. For the MLB, Ben Rice for the Yankees missed the last game with a hand injury, but he is day to day, so it's nothing major. So he could come back at any point. He'll probably miss this. I could see them ruling him out for this series, or actually, I gotta see who the Yankees are playing because if they're because they just ended the series, whereas yeah, they're starting a new series today versus the Rangers, so he could come back. He could come back at some point in the series, but he missed that last game versus the Orioles due to the hand injury. But like I said, it's nothing major, so we could be seeing him return soon. And then for the Pirates, Jared Jones, he's going to be out for the next 2 months if I want an elbow injury. So hopefully he'll be back by June, but he suffered, or he could be back late this month, but he suffered it recently towards the end of April. So now we're at May. So he could come back like May 25th, somewhere around there. That's a projected return, but he's gonna be out for well not 2 months, on well a month realistically. Well he could it just depends on how bad it depends on how well he progresses because it could be from 1 to 2 months. It just depends on how well his elbow progresses and how it's gonna feel. And then for the NBA, Carter Bryant is day to day for the Spurs. I didn't realize he was injured, but they could probably use him. They could use his size because obviously you got Luke Cornett, but I think with Wemby, Luke Cornett, Carter Bryant, I think you could use all three of them. Not at the same time, of course, but in different variations of the game. If one of them gets in foul trouble or an injury happens, knock on wood, not hoping it happens, but Carter Bryant, I think you can make useful because Minnesota has size. They got Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, Nas Reed, even Jay McDaniels. Like even though he's a small forward, he's a long small forward. Like he got length and he got a crazy wingspan. So um, that team is big. And then Anthony Edwards, even though he just 6'5", he plays like a bigger guy. So because he's able to get downhill, he's able to hit pull up shots. He can score from anywhere. So yeah, I think you can use Carter Brown a little bit in this series. And speaking of the Spurs, Anthony Edwards just returned for the Timberwolves last night. Had 18. He just played 25 minutes off the bench when they won that game. So I can only imagine what the series looks like once he gets back to the 30 plus minutes a game that he'll usually be playing. Excuse me. But Anthony Edwards, he was great in his return. He looked really good. He uh, Well, I had Julius Randle stats written down, but Anthony Edwards, I remember he had like 18 in that game. He didn't commit a lot of turnovers from what I remember. So Anthony Edwards, he looked really good in his return, and like I said, once he gets back up to that 30 minutes, I can only imagine what the series is going to look like. I'm gonna pull up his shooting. Yeah, he only had one turnover. He had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 18 points. Only took 3 3 pointers out of his 13 shots. So Anthony Edwards, he was really good. And then sticking with the Timberwolves, Ayo DeSumo is day to day, so it's unclear when he'll be able to return. But it's not a week to week thing or him being out like Dante DiVincenzo for the rest of the year. So he will return at some point in this series. So they're gonna get that great scoring off the bench once again. Obviously, it can be on and off, but he did have 3 straight games where he scored double figures, and it was like 25, 43, 18. So and then like I said, he was injured, but he had 3 straight games where he played really well and he was shooting efficiently. He was doing his thing. So getting Io back and what he's been able to do is going to be great, especially if he can deliver that. So yeah, Anthony Edwards just returned. Obviously, Dante DiVincenzo is out for the season, but they could be getting Io DeSumo back at any point in this series, that'll be tremendous for Minnesota. And then the last person on the injury report, I got Luka Doncic for my Lakers. He could be returning by game 4. The series could be over by that point because we're down 3-0. I don't see us coming back because Ad and Luka. We seen what Ad and Reeves did. Obviously, he brings us good scoring, but our defense took a dip. The rhythm was thrown off, so that's why we lost those back-to-back games and had to win in game 6. But we still got the win. We still led 3-0 at one point in the series. So Kevin Durant only played one game, and there was a game, and they lost that game. So yeah, so Reeves returning obviously threw it off a little bit. So even if the Lakers do make it competitive somehow and take a game or two, it's like once Luka comes back, it's like yeah, we get our best player back. He's a phenomenal scorer. He can uh, he can get it. He's a great playmaker, but it's gonna throw off that rhythm because we gotten used to not playing with him at this point. So bringing him back into the lineup, like it could throw off the rhythm depending on where he comes in. Maybe he could come in and be just fine, but against OKC, it's like if we're not getting him back at the start of the series, then it's likely over. And it seems like he'll be back by game 4, maybe game 3, but game 1 definitely won't be playing tonight, and very unlikely to play game 2. So and then I know he just started running, or he hasn't, or he's about to start running. So we'll probably get him back by game 3, game 4, if he's able to. But if he's not, it's a possibility he just doesn't play the whole series, which is fine. It might just be what it is. He might not play at all. We might get swept. So we'll see what happens. But Luke is still out with an injury. He's yeah, he's really week to week. He's not even day to day. So yeah, we will see what happens with that. But with all that being said, that covers the injury report. It covers almost everything for today. Let's move into the final segment for today's podcast episode. Are we buying this? Will the Carolina Hurricanes sweep the Philadelphia Flyers? Uh, they won the first two games. The first game, the Hurricanes dominated. I made it short about it, but I can dive deeper into it since I got more than a minute to make it. But Carolina, they dominated that game. They scored two goals in the first period. They got out to a really good start. Logan Stankoven scored two of their three goals, and he won the seven faceoffs, lost just four of them. So him winning those faceoffs, allowing them to get extra possessions with the puck, allowing them to score more. And it's like they didn't have a great, like a lot of their guys lost more faceoffs than they won. But Logan Stankoven, he was winning his. He was also scoring goals. So he was helping his team, setting them up even without getting assists. He was setting them up, putting them in good positions to score, and they was able to do that. Obviously, it wasn't a lot, which it shouldn't be a lot. It's hockey, so they end up winning that game 3-0, a shutout in the first game. So that was very impressive. And the Hurricanes, the the Hurricanes swept the Senators, which was one of two sweeps in the first round. It was one because it was because it was a really long first round. It was six games, three games in the West won six games, while the Avalanche they swept the Kings, and then it was yeah, and then it was in the first, then in the Eastern Conference, it was two 6 game series, one 7 game series, which was fantastic, and then the Hurricanes sweeping the Senators. So out of the eight first round series, only two of them were sweeps, and then none of them went to five. Everything was a 6 or 7 game series except for those two. So after the Hurricanes swept the Senators, it's realistic to think can they sweep them? Because like I said, game one they were just, and then the other Wood, no Jackson Blake, he had one goal, one assist. So that was the other yeah, him Seth Jarvis, uh, Andrew, they all had one assist in that game. So in that game one. So it's like realistically, can they sweep the Flyers? Because in that first game, Dan Ladder, he didn't do well. He was benched the last 4 minutes and 8 no, like 4 minutes, 30 some seconds, like 4.5 minutes. He was benched. And then, like I said, the Flyers, they don't have any goalkeepers that's good enough to come in and back them up. So it's like after you give up two goals in the first period, you usually think, oh, he'll probably get benched in that second period. But it's like they don't have nobody else that can match him and do what he's done all season. So you have to stick with Dan Flatter at that point. And so they still end up losing. So it's unfortunate, but you still have to stick with them because that's just what it was. And then you have multiple guys who was on the floor who was just a negative impact. There was a negative plus minus was negative, so that's just what it came down to. But this team is just so consistent and been so great, and the Hurricanes do have 10 more wins than them on the season. They do have less losses. They have went to overtime less, and they have been great at home. So we already seen them sweep somebody, and we seen the Flyers. They were in a series that went 6 games that shouldn't have went six. They led 3-0 and they dropped back-to-back games. They could have won. They could have won that series in five. Obviously you can say four, but I feel like not. But when you're done, that closeout game is always the hardest. But I give the Penguins credit; they fought back and they nearly pushed it to seven because that it came down to a last second goal. It came down to the Flyers winning 1-0 in Game Six after being up 3-0. So you exhausted a lot of energy not being able to close out that series. And then in Game Two, the Flyers played much better. They actually had the lead at one point. They led 2-1 after the first period, so, and they held that lead going into the third period for a good majority of it. Like you were still up, and then it was a late game collapse. Give up a goal. Ladder gives up a goal in the third period, which I think who scored that? It was uh, I think I wrote down the wrong number of who scored for. Wait, no, I'm looking at the no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. No, it was Seth Jarvis. He scored to tie it and send it to overtime because there was like it was late. No, he scored. He scored to tie with 8 minutes left. Steph Jarvis goal that came. It was 8 minutes left, so it becomes a 2-2 game at that point. And he led from after the first, led for 32 minutes, or really more. Yeah, and that's counting from second period to third period. Because I'm thinking after the first period, you had a lead of 32 game time minutes, and then it goes to overtime, and it was and Hall scores the game winning goal. Like you had a lead for a good majority of the game because you led 2-1, and it was still a little bit of time in that first period left, so it was over 30 minutes that you had to leave for and like actual game time. Then it came down to the to Seth Jarvis getting the goal. Obviously, he had experience being in the playoffs before. Seth Jarvis, he had four shots on goal. That was the only one that he made, but that was the most important one to tie it and allow it to go to overtime because nobody else scored those final 8 minutes. Then the Hurricanes take it. They end up winning 3-2, and they take a 2-0 series lead. So will the Hurricanes sweep the Flyers? I mean, with the way the Flyers have played, with you getting shut out in game one, then in game two having a late game collapse where you lead for majority of the game, it just seems like the Hurricanes are going to sweep them because they've just outplayed them. And that's even with Sebastian Aho not doing much anything. Dan Vladder giving up 3 goals in both games. You gave up three. That's 6 goals you've given up in 6 goals in 2 games. You're just not gonna win that way. Giving up 3 goals a game and expect to win a series, it's just not realistic. But I don't think they'll sweep them. I do think they win this series with ease. I do think the Hurricanes win in the 5 games. I think because their next game is on the 7th. Next game is in 2 days on Thursday. So they got a few extra days of rest. But can they? Will it be a sweep? I don't think so personally, but I do think it's a 5 game series. I think with how dominant the Hurricanes have been throughout the season, what they were able to do in the first round, they're not gonna play around. They gonna even if they lose this next game, it's gonna be close. Like I don't see them getting blown out. I would be shocked. But I could see them winning this series in 5 games because the Flyers they just aren't. They just don't look like a playoff team. I mean, they played like it in the first round. They upset the Penguins. They got out to a 3-0 series lead. Then they got relaxed, and then Game 6 came down to a goal in the final few minutes of the game. I don't trust this team. I don't think they can make it competitive for the entire series. I can see the Hurricanes dominating the rest of this series like they did these 2 games, really. And last game wasn't a domination. The first game was. The last game, it was just like a late game collapse by the Flyers. And it's like, you're not going to win in the playoffs like that. Like, you were able to steal a game. You stole multiple games in Pittsburgh, but the Hurricanes not going to allow you to do that. So will it be a sweep? Obviously, it's 2 games into the series, so it could be an overreaction. The Flyers can win both at home. Then it's a tie series going back to Carolina. Do I see that? Do I foresee that happening? No, but that's still a possibility. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, then cool. So we'll just have to see what happens. But that I, I do think the Flyers get Game 3. But I think the Hurricanes win Game 4, take a 3-1 lead, go back home and win in 5 games. I think the Hurricanes just clearly outmatched this team. I had the Hurricanes as a team. I had the Hurricanes, the Avalanche, in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I think the Hurricanes are going to dominate and cruise through the first 2 rounds. They already won 4-0. I think they win 4-1. Then in the conference finals, it just depends on if they match up with Buffalo or Montreal. So I can't make my decision yet because again, one of that series is kicking off tonight. So, well, is it? Um, no, game one of that series kicks off tomorrow because Montreal went 7. So, um, well, Montreal went 7 and Buffalo went 6. So both teams they getting a little bit of an extra rest due to that. But yeah, the Hurricanes. Will it be a sweep? I don't think so. But will it be a close series? Also, no. Like I said, I think the Hurricanes win the series in 5 games. But with that being said, leave a like on this live.